Yeah, thank you. My name's Joe Seeley. I've actually been a CIPFA member since 1989, and I've had a career that spanned the public sector and the private sector. So in the public sector, I've worked in various local authorities in the country, and in the private sector, I was a management consultant, a partner at KPMG, one of the big four. And I had a spell in investment banking at Goldman Sachs, where I was a managing director. And following that, I co-founded a business called Greater Pacific Capital, which is an investing business, deploying capital in Asia, particularly India, in high growth companies for profit and purpose. And alongside that, my current role, I am the newly appointed independent chair of the board of CIPFA. Black History Month is important because, as with all history, everyone needs to know where they came from. And in my case, I'm the son of immigrants who came to the UK in the 60s from St. Lucia on a boat in search of better opportunities. And that journey brought them to this country. And in thinking about Black history, it's an opportunity to reflect on their journey. It's also an opportunity to think about things that have inspired me. And in terms of Black history, I have an enduring memory of when I was a young boy, and my tutor, who's now still a dear friend, Sheila, gave me an assignment to research the life and the contribution of Martin Luther King. And I knew very little about the civil rights movement. I knew very little at that time about the challenges and the struggles of Black people in the US and beyond. And that assignment opened up a curiosity in me that stayed with me for life in terms of understanding the various facets of Black history. And the speech that Martin Luther King gave in the August of 1963, which actually, it was the day after my birthday, so I remember it well, has been one of the most inspirational speeches ever given, and enabled me to dream, and enabled me to embark on a journey which has taken me to many different places, including CIPFA. And so history is an important part of motivating, opening our eyes to what's been before, and hopefully giving us a better understanding of how we've ended up where we are today. Well, I think Black history is important for many organizations, because organizations need to reflect the clients, the customers, the people they serve. And Black History Month is therefore an opportunity to share perspectives, to enable organizations and people to learn about each other, but to understand and learn about the contribution Black people have made in various facets of society, in its growth, in its development. And so it's an important part of history that we all need to understand. It's a shared history. And so for that reason, for me, Black History Month is a really important opportunity to learn and share experiences. Well, my career, as I've outlined, has spanned many different sectors, and everyone has career challenges in trying to be successful. As a Black person, what I found myself coming up against was trying to do that in organizations where often there was very little representation, very few role models. So trying to be successful in an environment where sometimes one questioned whether you fit within the organization or whether you could actually succeed and be successful. And so the earlier version of me sought to find organizations where I thought those challenges might be less. And as I said, I began my career in the public sector, which was at that time very much an equal opportunities employer. That's a phrase which at the time was quite novel, but it was one where I thought I could be successful in those sorts of organizations. But as I grew older, maybe a little wiser, I began to have the confidence to try to be successful in organizations where, although there was very little representation and there were few role models, I still believed that I could be successful in those organizations. And I had the audacity or the desire to try to succeed in organizations where I saw opportunity. And on that journey, I found many individuals, mentors, supporters, leaders who helped me overcome some of those challenges and seeing the opportunity associated with trying to be successful in those organizations. I have many role models. I've spoken about Martin Luther King. I'm also hugely inspired by Nelson Mandela, and had the good fortune when I was a partner at KPMG at an international partners conference. Nelson Mandela addressed our conference, and I spent time in Cape Town. I actually visited Robben Island and the cell where Nelson Mandela spent many, many years. But his ability to dream and dare believe that he could change South Africa and society is hugely inspirational to me. More recently, the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, again, tremendous source of inspiration. And it's interesting that only a few decades after the speech given by Martin Luther King, there was indeed a black president. And so those are some of the political or international figures that have been hugely inspirational. But I also would say that my parents have been hugely inspirational to me, because their journey in getting on a boat from a small island in the Caribbean to the United Kingdom in search of opportunity, and them having the courage to do that, the foresight and the courage to believe that there could be opportunities for them in the UK, that's hugely inspirational, that journey. So those are some of the figures, and of course there are many more in other walks of life, but those are a few in particular that I would point to. The short answer to that is no, but what I would say is that it's changed tremendously from when I joined and began my career. And now there are many examples of Black people in public sector and private sector organizations and in the profession doing incredibly well. And that's testimony to the changes that are taking place in society. But I still believe there's further road to travel in terms of seeing more representation, particularly at higher levels of those organizations, in leadership positions in those organizations, so that they more truly reflect the diversity of society. What I would say though is that my appointment, for example, as chair of CIPFA is a fantastic example of the opportunities and the changes that are taking place in the profession. Well, I am a huge supporter of CIPFA. And my journey from a student back in the late 80s to now is one where I'm hugely grateful that the qualification, which I think is a fantastic qualification, has provided me with the opportunity to work in a diverse range of sectors. I've met an incredibly smart and challenging group of people, supportive group of people. I've made some fantastic friends, and I've had some tremendous mentors within the CIPFA family. And I think it very much is a family. And so CIPFA has been tremendously good to me. And my desire to contribute to CIPFA in my current role is because of the gratitude I have to what the qualification has done for me, certainly in my career, across the many different sectors and internationally. I spent a lot of time in many different parts of the world where the qualification is one of the reasons why I've been able to do the jobs and the interesting work that I've been privileged to do. Well, I think Black History Month, as I've said, is a tremendous opportunity to share experiences, and organizations increasingly have made Black History Month a feature of the way in which they operate, and have made their employees feel more included and part of their organization. Sessions like this, which give the opportunity to talk to the CIPFA and wider community, podcasts, are all fantastic examples of the way in which organizations can use the Black History Month to share stories. And so I think there are lots of simple, small things that can be done. And also there are wider initiatives that organizations can take to make Black people feel included and part of their organization. I think what organizations do in terms of creating forums to have conversations like the conversation we're having about Black history and the experiences of Black people is tremendously important. So the more organizations create forums and the opportunity to share stories and experiences, those small steps I think are hugely important to make Black people feel included and to celebrate the significance and the contribution that Black people have made in society and through history. And an example of that, when I was at Goldman Sachs, one of the things I did was create something called the Firm-Wide Black Network in Europe. And that forum was an opportunity to enable Black people within the firm to come together, talk about their experiences, some of their challenges, learn from each other, and also provide a forum and opportunity to channel thoughts on how we could make the organization even more inclusive, more diverse, and share those thoughts with the leadership of the organization. So it provided a forum not just for Black people to communicate amongst themselves, but a forum which enabled us to have a dialogue with the leadership of the organization, who could begin to better understand the lived experience of Black people within the bank. And I think the more organizations do things like that, and find forums and means of getting people to talk about issues and about what it takes to be successful in an organization, those sorts of things are fantastic. I think these sorts of forums where I can share thoughts and other Black people can share thoughts, I think are also examples of small things, but really important things that organizations can do to share the history of Black people in society. Well, I've always found that dialogue and communication and the kind of conversations that we're having today on this forum are the ways in which one can be an advocate for positive change. And I think there has been there is tremendous change taking place, but of course there remain challenges. And I think some of the conversations that we are able to have with the media that we now have, where we can share online and in different forums experiences, are ways in which we can be advocates for Black people. I think there's a responsibility that successful Black leaders have to share their journey and their experiences and talk about those challenges and how those challenges have been overcome. And I think those sorts of actions can be incredibly constructive in bringing about change and understanding within society and within organizations. I'm inspired, as I said earlier, from the Martin Luther King "I Have a Dream" speech. So what I would say to a 10-year-old version of me is, Dream big, be bold, have courage, be the change you want to see.